The turning tide, 1942, the year that changed everything. Prologue, the moment of fear. We Germans, we saw ourselves as the best army in the world. Then there was Stalingrad. From that moment, we started to fear the worst. These haunting words from a German soldier capture the essence of 1942, the year when the seemingly unstoppable Axis powers began to crack, and the tide of World War II shifted forever. Chapter 1. The Desert Fox's Last Hunt. Ray Ellis in the North African Crucible. In the vast emptiness of the North African desert, British Sergeant Ray Ellis described his surroundings with characteristic soldier's wit. Miles and miles and miles of sweet FA. But behind the humor lay exhaustion and despair. After more than a year fighting the Germans in North Africa, Ray had grown tired of deserts and killing, and sick of the whole thing. The enemy they faced seemed invincible. General Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox, was closing in on the vital British-held port of Tobruk. If Rommel took Tobruk, he could take the Suez Canal. If he took Suez, he could take Africa. Ray's orders were simple and terrifying. Hold off Rommel's tanks. No retreat, no surrender. Fight to the last man and the last round, his officers told him. Don't think many of us are going to see the sunset today, Sergeant. The last stand. As Ray sat by his gun waiting for battle to begin, his unit discovered a barrel of Chianti wine. What followed was a poignant moment of humanity in the face of death. Soldiers laughing, backslapping, relieving tension. But as the alcohol wore off, the mood changed. Thoughts turned to mothers, sweethearts, and wives. They were frightened. When the battle came, it was swift and brutal. Ray found himself spinning in the air after an explosion. When he came to, his gun was upside down, his friends were dead, and he was surrounded by Germans. Of his entire section, only Ray survived, as a prisoner of war. The fall of Tobruk put all of North Africa within Hitler's reach, and Ray began the most dangerous journey of his life, a 1,000-mile transport across the desert as a POW. Chapter 2. The Pacific Gambit. Breaking the code at Midway. While the British struggled in North Africa, the Japanese had scored victory after victory in the Pacific. They had conquered the Philippines, Malaya, Burma, and even set foot on American soil in Alaska. Now they planned their masterstroke, a surprise attack on the U.S. fleet at Midway Island. If they could sink America's aircraft carriers, they could knock the U.S. out of the war for good. There was just one problem. The Americans had cracked their radio codes. Navy pilots Tom Cheek and Dick Best received their briefing with grim determination. The codebreakers knew, right to the minute, what the Japanese were going to do. As Best put it, we knew what the Japanese could do. We're under no delusions about that, but we know what we can do. We know they're coming. They don't know we're there. The ambush. As American dive bombers approached the Japanese fleet through cloud cover, pilot Tom Cheek felt the weight of the moment. You're stepping into the main ring right now. The battle was fierce and decisive. Japanese fighter pilot Iyozo Fujita described the terror. When I looked around, I saw 20 enemy dive bombers. The gunfire was terrifying. His plane was hit and he bailed out into the Pacific. Dick Best watched as his bombs found their targets. The first hit, second hit, the third hit. There must have been an inferno. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, almost half their navy, were sent to the bottom of the Pacific. For the first time in the war, the U.S. had inflicted a major defeat on the Japanese. As Best recalled, "You're walking on air. It was an ambush, but we did to the Japanese just what they'd done to us. It was wonderful." Chapter 3. The Stalingrad Cauldron. Hitler's fatal decision. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, Hitler made a decision that would change the course of the entire war. Desperate for a quick victory after failing to take Moscow, he diverted his best army south to attack the city named after the Soviet leader, Stalingrad. German tank commander Hans Schoenbeck remembered the confidence they felt. "We were really fired up. Our tanks were as fast as lightning. Our morale was sky high, and we had amazing firepower." The women warriors. But Stalin had cards to play that the Germans didn't expect. The Red Army had recruited almost 1 million women, including machine gunner Alexandra Bocharova. "Girl, you're in the army now," she was told. "You will be a machine gunner, understood?" When the Luftwaffe began bombing Stalingrad on August 23rd, Alexandra was on a boat crossing the Volga River under fire. A shell landed next to them, throwing a nurse into the water. "She was gone to the bottom of the Volga," Alexandra recalled. "Somehow we made it across." The grinding battle. What the Germans expected to be a quick victory became a nightmare. As soldier Helmut Dengler described, "We'd take a house or ditch, and they would take it back a few days later. We suddenly realized we had a serious opponent." Alexandra Bocharova fought in this urban hell. "Every house was a battlefield. Shells were raining down like thunder. We lost so many troops." For 3 months, the two armies fought each other to a standstill in the rubble of Stalingrad. The trap closes. Then Stalin sprung his trap. Massive reinforcements attacked from north and south, catching the Germans completely off guard. As Dengler remembered, it was like something from a movie. The Red Army was coming from everywhere, north and south. German artillery commander Hermann Beckler watched in horror through his binoculars. There were so many of them. It was one wave after another. They weren't getting weaker, they were getting stronger. Soon came the realization that sealed their fate. My God, Stalingrad is surrounded. The winter of death. As the Russian winter closed in, the trapped German 6th Army began to starve. Hans Schoenbeck described their desperate situation. "We ran out of gas, then we ran out of ammunition. Then we ran out of food, so we ate the horses." Christmas Day 1942 found Hans and his men 1,800 miles from home, starving to death. "We had a little pine tree in my bunker," he recalled. "I tried to put on a brave face for my men. I said, 'Guys, we'll get out of here somehow,' though I didn't believe it myself, and nobody else believed me either." The situation became so desperate that Helmut Dengler witnessed the ultimate horror. Soldiers cutting out and eating the heart and lungs of a corpse. "I thought, my God, how low have we sunk?" On February 2nd, 1943, the German army surrendered. 800,000 Axis troops had been killed or captured. Hermann Beckler remembered the moment. "A Red Army soldier shoves his gun into my chest, and that's it, we are prisoners." For the Germans, it was catastrophic. As Beckler realized, sooner or later, all of Germany will be surrounded like we are at Stalingrad. That means the fall of Germany. For the Soviets, it was vindication. Alexandra Bocharova celebrated. "We hugged, we kissed, and shouted, 'I'm alive. I learned I was to receive the Order of the Red Star. I was walking proudly. It felt like the world was watching me.'" Chapter 4. The Tide Turns, Hope in the Darkness. Meanwhile, Ray Ellis, the British POW, experienced a moment that would sustain him through his captivity. Marched through Italian streets as townspeople spat and jeered, he felt utterly defeated. Then suddenly, out of the crowd, a young girl came and pressed into my hand a big peach, and then ran back again and hid herself. "Don't think anything ever tasted better than that peach," Ray remembered. "I just burst into tears. It made me realize that when you think the whole world is against you and things are going wrong, I always think there's a girl with a peach somewhere." That simple act of kindness gave him hope that things can change. The beginning of the end. By November 1942, that change was becoming reality. The British 8th Army defeated Rommel's forces at El Alamein. As Winston Churchill declared, "Now this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning." American troops landed in North Africa to help finish off the Axis powers there. The tide was turning. Epilogue: The Price of Victory. As 1942 ended, the seemingly invincible Axis powers had suffered their first major defeats. At Midway, the Japanese Navy was crippled. At Stalingrad, Hitler's army was destroyed. In North Africa, Rommel was in retreat. But as RAF Bomber Command's Arthur Bomber Harris warned Germany, the Nazis entered this war under the rather childish delusion that they were going to bomb everybody else and nobody was going to bomb them. They sowed the wind, and now they are going to reap the whirlwind. The war was far from over. As the conflict entered its 4th year, An even harder battle was beginning. To win the war, the Allies would have to take the fight to enemy territory and venture into the most dangerous place on Earth, Nazi Germany itself. The year 1942 had shown that the Axis powers could be defeated. Now came the long, bloody road to final victory.